Hello again, and welcome back to week 31 of year 4 of the Religious Education Initiative. This is day 3. We're continuing our way through the Gospel of John and are moving quickly through the Passion narrative. Last time we saw Jesus betrayed and arrested, healing the servant of the high priest after Peter cut off his ear, and then we saw the Lord brought to the house of the high priest. We saw John and Peter follow him and gain entry through some family connections of John's to the courtyard. There, Peter denied that he was a disciple of the Lord for the first time. We will now see how matters continue. So, this is verse 19 of chapter 18. Then the high priest questioned Jesus about his disciples and about his teaching. Jesus answered, I have spoken openly to the world. I have always taught in synagogues and in the temple, where all the Jews come together. I have said nothing in secret. Why do you ask me? Ask those who heard what I said to them. They know what I said. When he had said this, one of the police standing nearby struck Jesus on the face, saying, Is that how you answer the high priest? Jesus answered, If I have spoken wrongly, testify to the wrong. But if I have spoken rightly, why do you strike me? Then Annas sent him bound to Caiaphas the high priest. Now, Simon Peter was standing and warming himself. They asked him, You are not also one of his disciples, are you? He denied it and said, I am not. One of the slaves of the high priest, a relative of the man whose ear Peter had cut off, asked, Did I not see you in the garden with him? Again, Peter denied it, and at that moment the cock crowed. Then they took Jesus from Caiaphas to Pilate's headquarters. It was early in the morning. They themselves did not enter the headquarters so as to avoid ritual defilement and to be able to eat the Passover. So Pilate went out to them and said, What accusation do you bring against this man? They answered, If this man were not a criminal, we would not have handed him over to you. Pilate said to them, Take him yourselves and judge him according to your law. The Jews replied, We are not permitted to put anyone to death. This was to fulfill what Jesus had said when he indicated the kind of death he was to die. Then Pilate entered the headquarters again, summoned Jesus, and asked him, Are you the king of the Jews? Jesus answered, Do you ask this on your own, or did others tell you about me? Pilate replied, I am not a Jew, am I? Your own nation and the chief priests have handed you over to me. What have you done? Jesus answered, My kingdom is not from this world. If my kingdom were from this world, my followers would be fighting to keep me from being handed over to the Jews. But as it is, my kingdom is not from here. Pilate asked him, So you are a king? Jesus answered, You say that I am a king. For this I was born, and for this I came into the world, to testify to the truth. Everyone who belongs to the truth listens to my voice. Pilate asked him, What is truth? Okay, so there are a few things going on. First of all, Jesus before the high priest. John doesn't show us much of this because the other evangelists, I think, have shown more thoroughly that exchange between Jesus and the high priests and so forth. But the core here, I think, harkens back to some of the conversations that we've seen before of Jesus with the high priests, when he speaks about himself, and they say, Oh ho, you're bearing witness to yourself. So there's almost a little bit of a cut here, as Jesus says, Why are you asking me now to bear witness of myself? Ask those who heard. I've spoken in public. Everyone knows what I've said. You've heard me speak, right? He's kind of saying. So that there is a little bit of an edge, perhaps, to what Jesus says. It doesn't justify. I was listening recently to another priest speaking about this, and he was saying, within this context, this is not the Romans. These are the Jews. There is an order that a trial ought to take, and you don't beat up someone who's been arrested, before you've demonstrated their guilt. So this is irregular. This is unusual. This is unjust, and everyone ought to know that. So Jesus answers mildly, and says, if I spoke wrong, say that I spoke wrong. But if I have spoken rightly, why are you hitting me? So, we'll notice that they don't make any accusation of Jesus here. And then Peter denies Jesus the second and third time. As we had suggested last time, this may not just be Peter trying to save himself, but almost a deeper betrayal, a deeper denial. Him saying, I'm not one of his disciples anymore. I tried to fight for him and he told me down. He called me down and told me to stop it. So if that's how it is, if I can't offer him my sword, then I guess I'm not his disciple anymore. But that third time, when the relative says, didn't I see you in the garden, maybe waving a sword around and cutting people's ears off, then Peter just says, no, it wasn't me. So I might be wrong in my suggestion. He may just be hiding himself because he doesn't want to be caught, especially as he is the one who did violence. But then they bring Jesus to Pilate, and it's interesting to note how the conversation goes. Because, first of all, they bring Jesus early in the morning, and they won't come in. So Pilate is rousted out of bed at an unusual time and told, the Jews have brought someone to you. And he's like, well, maybe bring them in. And they say they won't come in. So Pilate has to go outside to meet with... So Pilate is already impatient and already irritated, right? And he says, what's the charge? And they say, you don't need a charge. You don't like us, we don't like you. If we're bringing someone to you, you must know they're a criminal. And I think they're actually kind of hoping Pilate will just kill Jesus, because Pilate has shown no hesitation in killing Jews in the past. This is part of, it's a matter of historical record. And it was been mentioned in the Gospels as well that Pilate had massacred hundreds of, he crucified hundreds of innocents that he just grabbed from the streets of Jerusalem because there was a rumor that there was going to be a rebellion at Passover. But Pilate says, I'm not dealing with this. You all take him and judge him according to your law. And then the Jews say, no, you need to kill him because we can't kill him. That's the one thing you don't let us do. So then Pilate says, okay, so I have to decide whether I'm going to kill him. So he investigates. And we know why he investigates from other Gospels, because his wife had a dream and sent a message to him saying, don't have anything to do with that innocent man, right? So Pilate is maybe giving this more time than he otherwise would. So he asks him, are you the king of the Jews? Presumably that's a charge that had been given to him by the others, by the chief priest. But that's Jesus' question. Jesus says, is that what they told me about you? Is that what they told you about me? Or is this just your presumption? And Pilate says, I don't care. Your own people have handed me over. What have you done? So Jesus engages with the question and says, my kingdom is not of this world. And he explains and draws that connection with Peter, who tried to fight. And Jesus says, no, my servants don't fight. If my kingdom were of this world, then they would be fighting. But my kingdom is not from here. I told them not to fight. And Pilate is like, but you said you have a kingdom, so you are a king then. Pilate is really just looking for a nice, clear king, crucified, done. And Jesus says, that was your word, king. I'll tell you what I was born for, why I came into the world, to testify to the truth. Because everyone who belongs to the truth hears my voice. So that's an invitation to Pilate to listen to Jesus' voice, to belong to the truth. And Pilate answers with a sophist's question, a skeptic's question, a politician's question. What is truth anyway? Which is basically a denial that there is such a thing. So Pilate is not impressed with Jesus. He's not engaging. He's not listening up to this point. But Jesus is offering Pilate an opportunity to follow him. So anyway, we'll see how all of this continues as we move through this next week. But for now, God bless you all. See you next week.